Imagine what happens when you have large institutions, banks, central governments, large entities actually dealing in the asset. If we're at $1 right now, prior to the rest of the world really understanding that, I think the sky's the limit for how much higher you can go after that.
I think this is the hill to die on. We became social media pit bulls to help John do this thing. And there was a moment where, there was many moments where I was scared to death and I'm looking out my windows. I literally called up John and I said, I'd like to work for you if I can. John said, yeah, you can be an agent of the Deaton law firm. And so we signed a little agreement. I became an agent of the Deaton law firm.
Welcome back, family and friends. Today we're covering a monumental turning point in the world of digital assets and blockchain innovation. According to John Deaton, the white knight of the XRP community, the Rippleverse SEC case saw over 7,000 exhibits introduced. But guess what? Among all that noise, it was your voices, the XRP holders, that stood out. John mentioned Judge Annalisa Torres cited fewer than 3 dozen exhibits, and yes, our affidavits made the cut, so it's safe to say that our community played a pivotal role in shaping the legal landscape when Judge Annalisa Torres ruled XRP itself is not a security. This is so much more than a victory. It's a testament to the power standing together. It's proof that even in the face of complex regulatory battles and uncertainties, individuals and a collective action can bring together real change. As we move forward, we also keep our sights on another critical front, pushing for transparency and accountability. Organizations like Empower Oversight and the relentless John Deaton continue to champion the fight, seeking reports that could essentially expose the financial conflicts and violations within key agencies. But let's not forget about a bigger picture. XRP's potential goes way beyond lawsuits. Picture a world where major institutions, banks, and governments embrace this technology. If XRP is at $1.50 today without full global adoption, imagine the possibilities when clarity and widespread use all align. So buckle up, Buttercup, because today's episode celebrates not just what we've achieved, but where we're headed. Because here's a clip of John Deaton, digital asset investor, and Brad Kimes, aka Digital Perspectives, sharing some alpha during the Q&A session following the premiere in Boston. Here's a clip. Thanks for tuning in. Love you mucho.
There were over 7,000 exhibits introduced in the Ripple case. And if you look at Judge Torres' ruling, she only cited less than 3 dozen, 36. You know what one of those things were? XRP holder affidavits that were submitted. So out of thousands of exhibits, we made the final list. When she said XRP itself is not a security, she cited our affidavits, she cited other things in our brief. So you really did make a difference. Now, if Empower Oversight and us through Connect to Congress, if we can get that IG investigation report, I guarantee you it will have to find that Hinman violated 18 U.S.C. 208, which is a financial conflicts law statute that forbids even the appearance of impropriety. So they may do a what's called a soft approach and say, well, he violated the law for sure, but it wasn't necessarily intentional, and we're going to recommend some of these safeguards being placed in the future. But if we're able to get that finding, then that could lead to a real potential lawsuit for damages. But when you're dealing with the SEC, you're dealing with qualified immunity and sovereign immunity, and mere negligence isn't enough. You have to have smoking gun type of evidence to get past the motion to dismiss. So I'm not promising anything, but there is potential for a real civil action for damages against some of the people you saw highlighted in this film.
Imagine what happens when you have large institutions, banks, central governments, large entities actually dealing in the asset. If we're at $1 right now, prior to the rest of the world really understanding that, I think kind of the sky's the limit for how much higher you can go after that when you do see that real adoption where the regulatory clarity is finally taking place to see it.
I believe that, I'm a little surprised he hasn't officially resigned, but he's already given speeches about how great his time has been and all that kind of shit. So he's going to resign, I believe, after Thanksgiving, for sure.
That whole Eastgate thing first began, I was literally looking out of my blinds and I would tell my wife that I'm doing this thing, but and then there was a moment when I called Brad and I said, man, I think this is the hill to die on. And he knew that I didn't want to die on this hill, but I said, this is what we got to go and talk about now. And this was after John had come in and we started talking to John behind the scenes, and John would kind of give us, he'd say, hey, look, see if you can find anything on this. And we were kind of like a Rolodex in a way, because we had been in it so long that we kind of could say, oh yeah, I remember when this happened, and so was at this conference, and they said this, and so we kind of became like social media pit bulls to help John do this thing. And there was a moment where, I mean, there was many moments where I was scared to death, and I'm looking out my windows. I didn't want to get in one of those black vans that Stephen Marioff got in. And so there was a moment where luckily I brainstormed this myself actually, and I said, I'm going to call John Deaton and see if maybe I can work for him or something, because maybe that would create some kind of veil of protection. I want to work for John so that if you come after me, you're coming after John. So I literally called up John and I said, I'd like to work for you if I can. John said, yeah, oh yeah, you can be an agent of the Deaton law firm. And so we signed a little agreement. I became an agent of the Deaton law firm. Then I called up Brad. I said, Brad, you might want to become an agent of the Deaton law firm too. So we're agents of the Deaton law firm.
And I have to say, going back to that moment when I got the call, it was right after you found the Gasparino clip, you know, the Brooklyn Project and stuff, and we started talking and all that stuff, and we were concerned. And you know, when we had that, it was a serious moment, right? Like, you know, like there was nobody else, right? Like, you know, and I'm not saying that to isolate, because it became something beautiful that encompassed everybody. And I think the real macro story here to take away from me or anybody in here is the power of one. Is when one person decides to stand up and fight, and what it can do. And look at this room. Look at what you've done. Look at everyone here. Look at all of us. It happens now because of everyone working together to expose it. And I have to thank everybody in here for being a part of it. But this is a scary moment, because he's telling me this is the hill to die on.